We are back with more on Leadership Matters with the People's Doctors. And for those who are just joining us, we are in a lively discussion about rogue leaders, courageous leaders, for those who prefer those words. I am here with my co-host, Dr. Loretta Howard, Dr. Cheryl White. Again, glad to have both of you join me in this conversation. I want to get to our second audience question too for the day, because that was a very powerful question that popped up too. So, and that question is, how do you when you've gone too far? This particular leader says they have disrupted something on their team with good intentions and it backfired. How do I recover my credibility when rogue leadership doesn't always go the way it's planned? Dr. Cheryl, you want to take a first swing at that one?
No, I'm going to be like Loretta. I do not. Oh, goodness. Dr. Loretta, you want to go first and I go second, or you want me to,
Okay, all right.
or you want me to
Well,
lead
let me
in?
try. I
Okay.
was glad.
Good question.
I was
Yeah.
like, yes,
Good
somebody
question.
else. Okay. But the first thing I think is that you have to admit it. Yep, I tried something. Unfortunately, that didn't work. And it wasn't the intention for it not to work, but then you see the impact that it had. And it's like, again, I admit I did it and it didn't work. And maybe involve other people for getting some ideas moving forward. What could I have done better? Get some feedback from them and things like that. But the first thing for me would be to definitely admit, yep, I definitely tried that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It didn't work. That was not my intention. So I'm open to listening to how to maybe do something better.
I love that, Dr. Loretta, and I think two words that stood out in your answer there was intent and impact, because sometimes we will do something, and I love that the audience person said with good intentions. I did this with
Right,
good intentions,
right,
yet the impact was not what was intended. And for us
right,
to be able to say, let me examine why my
right,
impact did not align with my intention,
right.
and then be able to rewind and
Mhm.
do something different going forward. And I'll go back to the thought around, because they said they disrupted something on their team with good intentions and it backfired. Again, were they in alignment?
Right.
And so did I embarrass my leader? Like, what
Mm,
did I do?
mm, mm,
What dynamic was created?
mm.
And is there a way that I can have a private conversation first, and then that be less likely to have a rippling effect of negativity? Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
a
Absolutely.
difficult situation, and,
Yeah.
being willing to pause
Right.
and examine the difference between the intent and impact.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's par for the course. I mean, I think courageous leaders, rogue leaders, are going to have some things that will just backfire. It's a good thing. It's not all so bad. So I think if you ever have tried to do anything meaningful, we all have experienced a story like this where things backfire. And I think the key is, I want to say, is don't let that moment define your leadership, right? Recovery starts with accountability. Be honest about it. Go back to the team and says, "Hey, I blew it. I moved too fast. I didn't bring you along the way like I should have." And then do a genuine assessment of yourself as well. Was it the wrong ideal or was the execution wrong? Many times the ideal was a powerful one. It was the right one, but maybe the timing or the approach needed just a bit of adjustment. So I would say think about those things in terms of the backfirings that's going to happen. Because if you're doing this rogue leadership the right way, backfires will happen. So if you tell me you haven't had a backfire being a rogue leader, then you're not being a rogue leader. So that's what I'll add to that. So, all right, very good questions. So continue to send those questions in. We love them, even though they challenge us, because I think we try to figure out, well, that's a good, what would I respond? How would I respond to something like that? So send those questions into us. We love the questions. So, Dr. White, let's delve into this human side of rogue
Mhm.
leadership for just a moment.
Okay. So let's say when a leader starts challenging norms, not everyone on the team is going to celebrate that.
Mm.
So, how do you bring people along when change feels threatening?
Mm.
Ooh, change is never easy at all for people. And I say that from personal experience because I don't always like to change.
Mm,
But I get brought along but what works for me and what I try to do for people who I work with or a team is I do try to have empathy towards them because I know it's difficult
mm,
to change, especially when we think we have something, it's just the best way to slice the bread or whatever the case is. But truly to have empathy and say, understanding where they're coming from and then talking to them, really listening to them. Why do they feel that way? What is the reasoning behind it? And when possible, explain the why to people. If we have to change, why? Why are we changing it? Why do we have to do that? I remember when a few companies that I worked for, and I was always involved when we would have a reduction in workforce. I was one of the people who would go to organizations that we would acquire and talk to them about, we're taking over your company, this is what's going to happen with your job and stuff. That was not always easy, but just understanding it because I had been riffed before, so I knew how they felt, but explaining the why and then sometimes admitting, I know this is a loss for you, because in a way you almost go through a grieving process to
mm,
change some things. You're either grieving or you're angry, but getting some input from them. We make this change. How do you think we can do things better? Or getting some feedback from them so that they can have some buy-in to what you're trying to do. But change is not easy. And no matter how much I can say this, there are things that I just like to do a certain way. And when somebody asks me to change it, the hair on my arm starts sticking up. It's like,
mhm,
oh,
mhm.
change it? What's wrong with the way we do it now? I still am living that sometimes.
No, thank you,
I,
Dr. Retta. Your thoughts, Dr. Dre?
I go right along with Dr. Reddish stated. I think you, again, remind yourself as a rogue leader, really, you start where your people are at, not where you want them to be. That's a piece of advice I would share. And it sounds simple, but it's really deep when you terms of trying to get through, especially for those leaders who are vision forward, because we want to talk about where we're going before we have honored where people are. So when change feels threatening, the first thing people need to know is that they have been heard. And so before I start selling anything new or a new idea or a new concept, I take the time to check in with my team and says, here is what you've done that matters. Here's is where we are keeping. This is what we're keeping. This is not what we're keeping. And here's how we're going to move forward and get their input in terms of it. It acknowledges the past without being in prison. It involves them in the design of change, makes them have a voice as part of that process. It's transformative. And so when you have team members who buy into, again, your ideas and ways you want to think about doing something differently, you're building something, and they're more apt to defend it instead of resist it. And so that's how I would respond and add flavor to that particular question. So,
Mhm. Yeah, I love what both of you said. I just probably would summarize the uh, inform, the anticipated, one might say, what and why, and love the getting the input and empathizing and seeing what you might even be able to use relative to the input that's provided and the advance notice. I think the more people have advance notice to warm up to a particular change, not notifying while changing, but really ahead of time being willing to um, inform, empathize, consider input, and then move can be certainly very helpful. Both. Mhm.
yeah.
And before going to the next question, I just want to add one more thing. And the
Mhm.
two of you may have seen this happen in organizations too. I'm not sure I would call them a rogue leader, but you
Mhm.
have those unofficial leaders
Mhm.
where it's someone who, okay, we're doing this change, and you see everybody go talk to that person. What do you think about the
Mhm.
change? What do you, is this going to be good for the company?
Right,
Getting your ideas.
right.
Identifying who that person is, that's
Those
somebody
informal
you want
leaders,
to talk
yes.
to. Yes, those
Mhm.
informal leaders, because they
Mhm.
might not have the title, but people go to them and get their
Right.
thoughts on
That's
it.
true.
And
Mhm.
you really want to talk to that person to see how they're feeling about it. I
Mhm.
what input. Yep, those
Mhm.
Yeah.
unofficial leaders.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so next question.
Hey, but I'm going to cut you off here because we got to take a break, Dr. Ray. I'm
Already?
sorry. I know.
Okay.
This is, I'm going to be rogue here, so I'm sorry. I'm going to take this.
Okay.